Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here, got another Master Duel video for you. So, I've been thinking about it lately, and I kind of want to start doing more, like, mid-season tier lists. And with this month being a Duelist Cup, this felt like a good excuse as any to make one. So I wanted to cover what decks I think will take the most to the least number of spots in the Duelist Cup top 100. Now this tier list is going to be a little bit different than like my regular just meta tier list, because I make those with typically just Master Duel ranked ladder in mind, because that is what, of course, the vast majority of people watching are playing is ranked ladder. But again, I was kind of thinking to myself, you know, there's a fair number of people, I think, especially this being a more competitively minded channel, that are definitely looking to shoot for the Duelist Cup World's invitation there. So in that regard, I thought I would share some of the decks that I think will do particularly well. Now again, rather than breaking stuff down to like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, or rogue like I usually do, I have it more classified by like the top 100 results, right? And it'll be fun to go and compare once those results are live to see how well we guessed it, where everything will be. So here are the top many spots in top 100. By many spots, I mean this will probably be one of the, like, you know, top 3 or 4 biggest pieces of the pie chart. Some spots in top 100, I'd say maybe about like somewhere in the neighborhood of like 3 to 5 decks in the top 100 is what I mean by some spots. 1 or 2 in top 100 means like, yeah, you might see it there. And then there are also decks that I just do not think will end up making top 100 in the Duelist Cup. So again, this is a little bit different from a regular tier list, but I think will mostly be the same. All right, so we're going to start right off the top with, I have ABC here just to represent all of the general union stuff. I have a lot of the more popular decks in Master Duel here, but I also threw in a lot of the ones from the recent selection pack as well. So for ABC Union decks in general, and again, I do have to stress here that just because I'm saying a deck won't make top 100 doesn't mean I think it's bad, right? Top 100 of Duelist Cup is, of course, the best of the best in Master Duel. The Union decks have a lot behind them, but unfortunately, I think that their combo lines are just a little bit too, like, their end boards can be pretty impressive when they're doing, like, the Firewall Dragons and Griffin locking and doing fancy stuff, down to even Fiendsmith ABC also being able to put up a pretty impressive looking end board. I just don't think it can do it as consistently as other decks through hand traps. So that's going to be a lot of what goes into the won't make top 100 decks. Blue Eye is a deck that has gotten a lot of recent support. I think will be in the top 100. I think it'll probably just be a couple of slots though. I mean, the deck has been seeing a lot of popularity lately, but I think the thing about it in the current meta is that Droll Lockbird is really popular right now, due mostly to the Fiendsmith and Millennium engines being so widely used, and Blue Eyes does tend to suffer. Blue Eyes is also a lot more susceptible to hand traps than a lot of these other meta decks right now. Somewhat similar story to the Union cards, but I think Blue Eyes has a little bit more oomph behind it as far as its power level goes, which I think may cause it to see 1 or 2 in the top 100. So Makongo, I think we could also potentially see 1 in the top 100. For the Duelist Cup, it tends to be more often the like Infernoble big long combo builds that are more popular. Although if you look at Untapped and, you know, you look particularly at, you know, Master Ranked Ladder, it's kind of 50-50 whether it's the Infernoble combo like Warrior Piles or the OTK variant. And Makongo is doing very well on Master Rank. I don't think it'll be a super popular choice, but I think dedicated pilots will be able to get in to the top 100. We've seen that with Makongo in the past. It's kind of been in the 1 or 2 in top 100 spot. Yubel. For Yubel, I'm going to put it in many spots for now, but I could see it actually even being in some spots, meaning like maybe 5 Yubel decks in the top 100. A lot of what it comes down to for the Duelist Cup in particular, I think, you know what, and I think I am actually going to bring it down just a little bit for now. I might change my mind on that, but you know, when people are bringing a certain style of deck, they're probably just going to bring, like, whatever they perceive to be the best variant. And I've seen some people express this in the YouTube comments, and I'm somewhat inclined to agree, is that Fiendsmith Yubel just feels enough weaker than the Snake Eye variants that it just, I don't know. You have to play more bricks. The inboard isn't quite as robust. It doesn't play through hand traps quite as well. Like, it's certainly not bad by any means, but it kind of feels like like Snake Eye is just kind of like anything you can do, I can do better, you know, when it comes to Snake Eye and U-Bell here. It is a different endboard for sure, but I don't think it's necessarily better or straight one-to-one comparable. Cash Tira. See, I kind of want to put this in 1 or 2, but I almost wonder if 7th Tachyon will give this deck a buff. Not even necessarily just searching Rise Heart, but also just grabbing like a Fossil Diamond and sticking it on your end board, right? I think there's a decent bit of potential there. Kashtira also has a lot of room for board breakers, meaning that it plays pretty well going second. Having a deck that plays well both going first and going second, I think is quite important. Kashtira, I think... yeah, I'm going to leave it here in some spots. I could see a world where maybe, you know, only 1 or 2 end up actually clearing. But I think, again, particularly with 7th Tachyon and being able to grab Fossil Diamond among any number of things, including Rise Heart, that there is potential to see maybe somewhere in the neighborhood of like 3 to 5 in the top 100. Also remember that it's not just exactly 100 decks. A lot of duelists do bring multiple decks to the Duelist Cup as well. Sprite, I think, firmly goes in the 1 or 2 in top 100 category. That's the case in literally every Duelist Cup, and it's almost always Tri-Brigade Sprite, too. I'll be interested to see with Swap Frog if people will be using Swap Frog with the Tri-Engine, or if the more quote-unquote pure build with Sprite and more of an, or with Swap Frog and more of an emphasis on just general level 2s will end up being better. But either way, I would be very surprised if we didn't see just a couple of Sprite builds sprinkled in the top 100 as we always do. That tends to be true of Runic as well. Whether it's a stun variant or it's probably just going to be a stun variant, but that's another one where I feel like we usually see just one kind of snuck into the top 100 there. Sky Striker. Cool deck, but I don't think it necessarily has what it takes. I can see a world where maybe Sky Striker Tenpai, there's like one of those that kind of sneaks in, but Sky Striker just has a lot of power level issues. That's what I noticed when I played it a few weeks ago for the channel. It's as consistent as ever, it just doesn't do as much as other decks do, right? Tearlament, I think, will be one of these, like, you know, some spots in top 100. I recently played, and you're going to see replays of it on the channel here in the next few days, Millennium with Fiendsmith and Tearlaments. I've been trying Millennium in a lot of different Fiendsmith decks, and Tearlaments with Millennium and Fiendsmith feels very good, but even just Fiendsmith, you have so many different options, and Tearlaments is already so flexible. Yeah, I really like putting... I think Tearlaments is even... Or am I thinking of Rating Duels? I was going to say recently in recent Duelist Cups, I feel like Tearlament placed particularly highly, but I think I might be thinking of previous seasons of Rating Duels. Anyway, Ritual Beast, I feel like it's always one of those decks where like very, very few people are going to be on it, but those few people are going to be able to pilot it very, very well. I'm going to put it, I think, here in 1 or 2, but I could easily see a world where maybe 3 or 4 end up getting in. It's tough. It's kind of like, I feel the same way about it in Blue Eyes. It's kind of way they're more towards the top of this tier in particular. Centurion, I mean, we might end up seeing one in there. I'd be a little surprised if we did. I was actually just about to drop this in here, but I think Centurion has enough legs to take at least a couple of spots. Maybe one, actually. Voiceless. Voiceless tends to do pretty well in Rating Duels and recent Duelist Cups. Enough so that I'm going to put it here in some spots. It's a very, very strong deck. It's a lot like Ritual Beast, where not a lot of people are on it, but those who are tend to be able to pilot it very well. Rescue Ace, I think, is a fine deck. I just don't think it's good enough. It's also not that popular of a choice. A lot of people think that this is like a... just a very boring kind of one-note deck. I don't think that of Rescue Ace. I completely understand why people do, but I don't think that's necessarily true. But either way, I mean, even then, the power level of the deck is not quite there, I don't think, to get to top 100. Okay, so Tenpai is the first deck that we're going to put in many spots. So here's the thing. While I do think Tenpai is still like a tier 2 deck in this meta, and you could certainly make an argument for any of these other decks below it to be a better deck than Tenpai. Tenpai is particularly good in a Duelist Cup format, I think. I mean, I don't really have a lot of experience playing in high Duelist Cup, so take that with a grain of salt. But just the flexibility. I think that ends up being really crucial. In the past, I know I said that quick wins matter a lot, but I don't think they necessarily do. Well, that's the thing, they kind of do, right? The whole ELO system is just wild. I mean, you can take a look at the Duelist Cup is technically a war crimes video. Goes into much greater explanation of how it actually does kind of come down to quantity of games. You can get away with quality of games, but the skill gap that you can make up for by just playing a lot of games is actually quite high. In any case, Tenpai, I think, is a very simple game plan. It's very flexible because, of course, it doesn't mind going second. Being on a deck in the Duelist Cup that more or less gets to ignore the coin flip is excellent. So I would expect to see it very well represented in the top 100, I think. I have Tachyon Transmigration just to represent the Tachyon deck in general, and I'm just going to throw this right down next to the Union stuff. It's cool. I'm not saying it's bad. I don't think it's top 100 Duelist Cup material, though, and I don't think a lot of people would necessarily disagree. So I have Magnamut here to represent just general Bestial control decks, which are gaining quite a bit of steam in Master Duel. The Bestial Fiendsmith pile, this could also, I guess, technically be Bestial Runic, but really this is more representative of Bestial Fiendsmith. And I think that there will very likely be at least a couple in the top 100. It's a prominent enough strategy. It's very flexible. The biggest issue that it has is that the turn 1 end board isn't as powerful as a lot of other decks, but again, it more than makes up for that with its flexibility. Drytron, I think, might also take 1 or 2 spots, but this has got to be the very border of what I would consider a deck that might take 1 or 2 spots. I really actually just want to put this in won't make it. You know what? I'll make the call. I don't think Drytron's going to make it. It's close. It's really close. And I could very easily see a world where 1 sneaks in, but I don't think so, ultimately. Okay, so Stun. Stun tends to be a little more popular in Duelist Cups than on Ranked Ladder sometimes, but the thing about Stun right now is that it's actually really popular on Ranked Ladder. So I would expect by sheer representation there's going to be at least 1 or 2, but I'm actually even going to throw it in some spots, because I think it might be closer to 3 or 4, honestly. When the meta gets very combo heavy, which Fiendsmith and Millennium make the meta very combo heavy, that's when Stun tends to start doing a little bit better. So yeah, I would expect maybe 3 or 4 spots in top 100. Snake Eye, do I even need to explain this one? I should at least a little bit. So I think that Millennium variant is going to end up being the best choice. I think a lot of people will be on Azamina. Of course, you always play Fiendsmith. I think a lot of people are going to take Azamina. I think Millennium will end up being better. We've seen that true in tournament results, in Rating Duel, top 10 results, and I can tell you from my own personal experience that the Millennium engine, not just in Snake Eye, but in general, is like fantastic. Plays very well through and baiting disruption from the opponent. It's good going first or going second. Paying 2,000 doesn't matter nearly as much in a format without time rules. In fact, it doesn't really matter hardly at all. I've never lost a game where I had to pay 4,000 to summon out multiple Millennium monsters, because if you've summoned out those multiple Millennium monsters, you are probably just going to win, because those are already a way to go into your combo line, into Fiendsmith stuff, but on top of that, you still have the rest of your hand and a normal summon. It's wild. Again, I don't think I need to explain why Snake Eye is up here. I think that the Fire King variant is the weakest. That one will probably only see 1 or 2 spots, but Azamina, I think, will have some spots, and I think that Millennium will have many more for just, of course, Snake Eye. Overall, I think will be the most represented archetype in the Duelist Cup. I know, brave takes only on this channel. Horus. So, Horus decks I've seen become a bit more popular, with Stun being a bit more prevalent as well. I guess what I mean by this is just like, you know, they're either playing Floodgates and or just going second board breakers, and then the idea is you just King Sark and summon a bunch of big bodies to accompany those, and that's how you win, which is a solid strategy. I don't think it's quite top 100 material, but it's an option that Stun could pivot into. Exodia decks. This is like pretty much Stun adjacent, but it's different enough that I have it separated as its own thing. I think this will also take some spots, although these two archetypes might be kind of competing with each other. So, like, I know I said earlier, oh, 3 to 4 stun. It might actually just be, like, maybe 2 of each. In that regard, would it not be better to simply just do this? Do I think that's right? I kind of think it is, honestly. Yeah, I'm going to leave these here for now. I might change my mind on that, but yeah, I think that Exodia is pretty comparable to Stun in what it does in a format like this. Lab, I think Lab remains a pretty decently popular pick. I've noticed Lab is kind of one of those decks that people will often bring as their second deck in a Duelist Cup. But I think we'll see at least 3. I think we'll see more than 2 Lab decks. Gimmick Puppet. It's funny how hard Gimmick Puppet has fallen off despite no hits in Master Duel. I've talked about this a little bit, but the thing about Gimmick Puppet is that once it becomes more popular in a format, then it's really easy, in Master Duel in particular, to tech en masse against it. And it's not like, I mean, granted the Duelist Cup is only one weekend, but it's not like a YCS where there's only like 9, well, it's not usually 9, it's usually more like 12 or something. Like, it's not like there's like, you know, 12 Swiss rounds, 9 to 12 Swiss rounds, and then that's all in the top cut, and then that's it. When you think about how few amount of games that is compared to the sheer amount that take place over a Duelist Cup weekend, it's not even comparable. What this means is that there's more time for the format to sort of cycle, so to speak, and in that case, you'll see these kind of meta shifts happen at a much, much more rapid pace than they would ever happen in paper play, right? Like, Gimmick Puppet does well in a paper tournament. It's going to be a few weeks to maybe even months before the next major paper tournament when people will then bring techs in mass against Gimmick Puppet, right? Whereas in Master Duel, that, again, because there's so many more games happening, that cycle is so sped up that, oh, I'm starting to see more Gimmick Puppets as I'm climbing a Duelist Cup. Let me just tech in some DD Crows or Bestials, right? Okay, we're not seeing them as much. All right, we can swap out of those now. In theory, that is something that could happen, which makes it a little bit more difficult for a deck like Gimmick Puppet to have footing in a format like a Duelist Cup than in a paper tournament. For that reason, I think we'll see 1 or 2. I think it's a little more likely we'll see it than stuff like maybe Centurion or Runic, but I don't expect there to be too many Gimmick Puppets. I could be wrong about this, but I would be a little surprised if there was more than like 3 or 4 total. Chimera. Chimera is a pretty solid deck, but where do I want to put it on this list? Do I think it'll be 1 or 2? I think it's pretty comparable to like Ritual Beast in that there might be 1 or 2, but like these top 5 here, I could easily see there end up being a few more that top. Hero, I just don't think is ultimately quite there. It's too long form combo with not enough board payoff as compared to other long form combo decks in this meta. Maybe 1, but I'd be a little surprised if that were true. Mathmech is probably only going to be 1 or 2. Yeah, it'll probably only be 1 or 2. It tends to be about the same number of Tri-Sprite decks as Mathmech. Mathmech is kind of hurting because of the Bestials in this format, like some other decks too, so might not be quite as prevalent, but it'll still sneak in there, I think. Twin variants, whether it's Fiendsmith or Twin Sprite, I don't think quite has enough oomph to get there. Both decks are fun, and I like them both a lot, but I think they lack power. I think the Twin decks lack power overall. White Forest, I think there will be a decent bit. I mean, it's a popular enough deck that it'll get in there. Branded hasn't really been doing that well lately in terms of either popularity or win rate, but again, that's ranked ladder data I'm extrapolating from. It's still a popular enough choice that I kind of want to put it in some spots, but I also kind of want to put it in 1 or 2. Like, okay, I'm not even looking at, like, you know, these first 3 as much. It's like, do I think there will be more Branded than Chimera and Ritual Beast? Ritual Beast, yes. Chimera, I think maybe. I'll leave Branded at the bottom of some spots. Fluanderies, I think, also might end up seeing 1 in there, but... Alright, looking at my list here, I think I'm satisfied with this. So, yeah, I think when it comes to the pie chart of top 100 decks in the Duelist Cup, Snake Eye and Tenpai are definitely going to be on top. As far as what comes after that, I think it could be any number of these, really. Well, maybe not like lab and branded and tier limits. That's kind of why I have them lower on the some spots, but I think the third highest will probably be Ubel. I could see it being maybe White Forest, like Voiceless and Cash kind of close behind. I'm pretty satisfied with this, but definitely feel free to let me know what you think in the comments below as well. In any case, thank you so very much for watching. I hope that you found this info helpful. But yeah, thanks again. This is Hexlex, and we're just going to move on now to our outro. Hey everybody, Hexlex here. Just want to give you a huge thanks for watching all the way to the very end of the video. Believe it or not, that is actually one of the best ways that you can support the channel, is by watching the videos in their entirety. But there are many ways in which you can support the channel if you are so interested. The names that you're seeing on screen here, I gotta give an extra special thanks to, because these are people who have chosen to either become a member on YouTube, which if you're interested you can do as well via the join button next to the subscribe button down there, or have signed up over on Patreon and become members there. Link to that is going to be in the description below. Without the support that is being offered by, again, all the people that you're seeing on screen right here, I would not be able to take the time to dedicate to uploading daily YouTube videos. So thank you so very much. But there are also other ways you can support as well. Again, link to the description below. If you like my deck tracker that you'll see in a lot of my videos, the Untapped Companion, you can download that for free, and if you use my affiliate link down there, then that also goes a long way towards supporting the channel. That's again free. So is subscribing here on YouTube. That's also free and a huge way to support. You can also check out Twitch, once again linked in the description below. Following and subscribing over there will not only support as well, but also give you notifications of when I go live if you want to catch some of the live streams. But really, no matter how you choose to support, it all adds up and it all definitely means the world. So thank you, each and every one of you. For now, this is Hexlex. I'm going to be signing out, but more than that, I'm hoping that you have a fantastic day.